Defiance among stars. The crystalline spires of the Vaxlith Palace pierced the amber skies of Zelnor Prime like daggers thrust into silk. Standing before the massive obsidian gates, Captain Nikolai Reeves straightened his diplomatic uniform and tried to ignore the weight pressing down on his shoulders. The fate of Earth, perhaps even humanity itself, rested upon this meeting. Bioscan complete. Human physiology detected. Proceed to decontamination, announced a disembodied voice that seemed to emanate from the very air around him. Nikolai cleared his throat. Captain Nikolai Reeves, emissary of the United Earth Coalition. I come in peace under the Galactic Accord. The gates parted silently, revealing a corridor lined with guards whose exoskeletons glinted under the artificial light. Their 4 arms held ceremonial weapons that Nikolai knew could shift into deadly energy projectors in microseconds. The Vaxlith were nothing if not efficient in their military displays. Your companion device must remain in standby mode, announced a tall guard whose carapace bore elaborate royal markings. Nikolai nodded, tapping the neural interface behind his ear. Thea, sleep mode. Compliance confirmed, whispered the AI in his ear before going silent. What the Vaxlith didn't know was that sleep mode was actually a special reconnaissance protocol they had developed specifically for this mission. The AI would continue gathering data, mapping the palace, and analyzing Vaxlith communications while appearing dormant to their scanners. The throne room defied human architectural understanding. Gravity seemed to obey different rules here. Water flowed upward in spiral fountains, and floating platforms orbited a central dais where she sat. Queen Zatara of the Vaxlith Empire, ruler of 17 star systems and self-proclaimed sovereign of the Outer Rim. Unlike her guards, her exoskeleton was a translucent azure that revealed pulsing organs beneath. Her 6 eyes tracked Nikolai's approach with predatory precision. Her mandibles clicked in what anthropologists had interpreted as amusement. The human arrives at last, her voice resonated through the chamber, artificially translated yet carrying a harmonic quality that made Nikolai's skin prickle. Your species takes so long to respond to imperial summons. Nikolai bowed slightly, enough to show respect but not subservience. Your Majesty, interstellar communication has its limitations. We came as quickly as physically possible. Physical limitations, she clicked her mandibles again. How quaint that your kind still thinks in such terms. The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees as she leaned forward, her crown of sensory appendages fanning out. Let us dispense with pleasantries, Captain. Your planet occupies space that the Empire requires. Your resources are needed for the great expansion. The terms of your surrender have been transmitted to your leaders. Nikolai maintained his diplomatic composure despite the shock. There had been no terms received. Perhaps there has been a miscommunication, Your Majesty. Earth has received no such transmission. Then allow me to clarify. Queen Zatara rose from her throne, towering 12 feet tall. Earth will provide 10,000 human subjects annually for biochemical integration. Your planet's rare minerals will be harvested at our discretion. And your military capabilities will be dismantled under Vaxlith supervision. The throne room fell silent as Nikolai absorbed the outrageous demands. This wasn't negotiation, it was extinction by installment plan. And if Earth refuses, he asked, already knowing the answer. The same fate as the Centauri colonies. Her words hung in the air like a death sentence. Everyone knew about the Centauri, an entire civilization reduced to space dust within days. In his ear, Thea whispered almost imperceptibly, physiological readings indicate she's not telling the complete truth about Centauri. Archive access successful. Nikolai needed time. Your Majesty, such terms require consultation with Earth's leadership. A decision of this magnitude. You were sent with full authority, Captain Reeves, she interrupted. Do not insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise. The Vaxlith Empire has studied your species thoroughly. Your neural implant confirms your status as a plenipotentiary. Nikolai felt a cold sweat break out across his back. They knew about diplomatic protocols, which meant they had infiltrated Earth's communications far deeper than anyone suspected. The terms are non-negotiable, Queen Zatara continued. You will kneel now and seal the agreement with the blood oath of submission. Your planet will be spared immediate destruction in exchange for gradual assimilation. The guards moved closer, their weapons humming with energy. Nikolai's mind raced through options, remembering his briefing. Earth's fleet was still 3 days away, positioned just outside the Vaxlith sensor range, waiting for his signal. He needed to buy time without triggering an immediate attack. Before I make such a momentous decision, Nikolai said carefully, royal protocol dictates that I should understand the full extent of the empire I would be submitting to. Perhaps a cultural exchange of information? The queen's eyes narrowed, but Nikolai detected curiosity in her posture. The Vaxlith pride in their empire was legendary, and potentially exploitable. You seek to delay the inevitable, she stated. I seek to honor the process, Nikolai countered. The blood oath of submission is sacred among your people. Would you have it given in ignorance? A ripple of movement passed through the attending courtiers, something Nikolai interpreted as approval. Royal protocol mattered to the Vaxlith aristocracy. Very well, Queen Zatara conceded. You will be shown the glory of the empire. Dexmora will serve as your guide. 1 planetary rotation, no more. Then you will kneel, or your planet burns. A guard stepped forward, distinguished by bronze markings on their carapace rather than the standard silver. For eyes instead of the royal 6, but with an intelligence that Nikolai immediately noted. Thank you, your majesty, Nikolai bowed again. I am honored by your patience. As he followed Dexmora from the throne room, Thea's voice whispered in his ear, archives accessed. The Centauri were not destroyed, they found a weakness in Vaxlith biology. Their civilization was relocated, not annihilated. The queen is bluffing. Nikolai kept his face neutral as they walked through the vaulted corridors, passing murals depicting Vaxlith conquests across the stars. The empire was impressive, but perhaps not as invincible as they wanted humanity to believe. You have questions, human, stated Dexmora, the translator giving their voice a metallic edge. Many, admitted Nikolai. Beginning with why the empire truly wants Earth. The guard's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Nikolai couldn't interpret. The sovereign does not share her true motives with common soldiers. Yet you're trusted to guide an alien diplomat. I am no common soldier. I am broodkin to the royal family, though distant. Interesting, thought Nikolai. Family politics existed even in insectoid empires. Then perhaps you can explain why the empire keeps the truth about the Centauri hidden. Dexmora stopped abruptly, mandibles clicking rapidly. How do you know of this? Your device was deactivated. Was it? Nikolai smiled slightly. Perhaps your technology isn't as infallible as you believe. Just as perhaps the Vaxlith aren't as invincible as the Queen claims. The guard's posture shifted, head tilting in what research had identified as contemplation. You are either very brave or very foolish, Captain Reeves. I've been called both, Nikolai admitted. But I'm primarily interested in preventing unnecessary conflict. If the Queen's demands are built on deception. The sovereign's word is absolute, Dexmora stated firmly, but Nikolai detected hesitation. They continued their tour through the palace complex, moving through laboratories where Nikolai glimpsed disturbing experiments on species he didn't recognize. Thea continued gathering data silently, feeding information directly to his neural implant. By the time they reached the palace observatory, a dome that offered a stunning view of Zelnor Prime's 3 moons, Nikolai had confirmed his suspicions. The Vaxlith Empire was technologically advanced but biologically vulnerable. Their rigid hierarchical structure had created deep divisions within their society. Tomorrow you kneel, Dexmora reminded him as they watched the smaller moon rise over the horizon. For your planet's sake, I advise compliance. Nikolai turned to face the guard. And if compliance means Earth's slow death anyway? What would you advise then? The guard's mandibles clicked softly. The sovereign's will cannot be questioned. Cannot? Or has not been, until now. Dexmora moved closer, voice lowered. Your words border on sedition. If another heard them. But you're listening, Nikolai pressed. Because something about this situation troubles you too. Before the guard could respond, a palace alarm blared. Lights flashed along the corridors, and guards began rushing toward the central complex. The Queen demands your presence, Dexmora said urgently. Immediately. As they hurried back toward the throne room, Thea's voice came through again, they've detected the Earth fleet. Someone gave away their position. Nikolai cursed silently. The fleet wasn't supposed to be discovered yet, not until he had more time to understand the Vaxlith weakness and potentially find allies within their society. The throne room was chaos when they arrived, advisors chittering urgently around the Queen, tactical displays showing the approach of Earth's ships. You deceived me, Queen Zatara hissed as Nikolai was brought before her. While you spoke of protocol and cultural exchange, your military forces moved into position. Just as you deceived Earth about the true nature of your demands, Nikolai replied, abandoning pretense. You don't want cooperation, you want conquest. The Queen's eyes flashed with rage. Kneel now and surrender your forces, or watch your planet burn. The room fell silent as everyone awaited his response. This was the moment everything hinged on, the moment that would decide the fate of Earth and perhaps the entire Vaxlith Empire. Nikolai stood straight, meeting the Queen's gaze without flinching. I will not kneel. Humanity does not surrender to threats, especially ones built on lies. Then you have chosen extinction, the Queen declared. Have I? Nikolai smiled slightly. Or have I chosen to expose the truth about the Centauri defense? About the biological vulnerability your empire has kept secret for centuries? The whispers that erupted around the throne room told Nikolai his gambit had hit home. The Queen's mandibles clicked furiously as she turned to her guards. Take him away. Prepare for immediate planetary assault. As guards surrounded him, Nikolai caught Dexmora's gaze. Something passed between them, an understanding, perhaps even the first spark of alliance. Whatever came next, the human had made his choice. He would not bow. And that defiance would change the course of galactic history. Revolution of worlds. The detention cell hummed with energy fields designed to contain species far stronger than humans. Nikolai paced the small space, mentally calculating the time until Earth's fleet would enter the Vaxlith defense perimeter. 3 hours at most. Thea, he whispered, status report. The AI's voice was barely audible. Communications jammed but still functioning on emergency protocols. Fleet Commander Hiroaki has received our data packet on Vaxlith vulnerabilities. They're adjusting strategy accordingly. A sound at the door made Nikolai fall silent. The energy barrier flickered and disappeared, revealing Dexmora. The guard's posture was different, more guarded, mandibles held tight against their face. You have created quite the disruption, human, Dexmora said, stepping inside and reactivating the barrier behind them. The royal court is in chaos. How did you learn about the Centauri defense? The same way I learned that not all Vaxlith support the Queen's expansionist policies, Nikolai replied, watching the guard carefully. Your species' communication channels aren't as secure as you believe. And yet you revealed this knowledge at the worst possible moment for yourself, Dexmora observed, head tilting. A curious tactical decision. Nikolai smiled slightly. Sometimes the best way to start a fire is to throw yourself into the flames. The guard's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, what Nikolai now recognized as their version of contemplation. The sovereign has ordered immediate preparations for war against your world. The royal geneticists have been summoned to the war chamber. Geneticists, not generals? Nikolai asked, though he already suspected the answer. The sovereign intends to deploy the harvest drones. Your atmosphere has been deemed compatible for spore deployment. Dexmora's voice lowered. Your people would not die, Captain. They would become hosts for the next generation of royal offspring. Living incubators. The horror of this revelation settled in Nikolai's stomach like lead. This was worse than destruction, it was transformation into something no longer human. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because what the sovereign plans violates our oldest laws. The ancestral covenant forbids reproductive conquest of sentient species. Dexmora's mandibles clicked in agitation. Many of us have watched the Empire drift from its founding principles, but few dare to speak against it. Until now? Nikolai suggested. Perhaps. The guard moved closer. There are factions within the palace. Those who believe the Empire has become corrupted under Queen Zatara's rule. The knowledge you possess about the Centauri, it confirms what some have long suspected. The royal bloodline is weakening. Each generation becomes more dependent on biological harvesting from other species. And you're part of these factions? I am broodkin to those who remember the old ways. Dexmora removed something from a compartment in their armor, a small crystalline device that pulsed with bioluminescent light. This will disrupt the neural dampeners in this sector. Your AI companion will have access to our central networks for precisely 3 minutes. Use it wisely. Nikolai took the device, understanding the enormous risk the guard was taking. Why help me? Because you chose not to kneel, Dexmora replied simply. In that moment, you displayed more honor than our court has shown in generations. After the guard departed, Nikolai activated the device. Thea, we have 3 minutes. Access everything you can about the harvest drones and genetic weaknesses. Working, the AI confirmed as data streamed through his neural implant directly into his mind. Images, technical specifications, biological analyses, everything flashed in rapid sequence. The truth was both horrifying and promising. The royal bloodline had indeed degenerated, making the queen dependent on genetic material harvested from other species. But this dependency had created a vulnerability, a specific frequency that disrupted their neurological systems. The Centauri had discovered this by accident during first contact and used it to force a peaceful resolution rather than face extinction. They hadn't been destroyed, they had negotiated from a position of strength and been relocated to a protected sector under terms favorable to both species. Time's up, Thea announced as the device went dark. Full analysis complete. I've transmitted the frequency data to the fleet. Now we need to get out of here, Nikolai muttered, examining the energy barrier. As if on cue, the barrier flickered and died. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility, but not because of him. Something else was happening. Palace security breach in the royal chambers, Thea informed him. It appears our friend Dexmora has been busy. Nikolai slipped out of the cell, finding the corridors in chaos. Guards rushed past him, too focused on the emergency to notice a single human moving against the flow. Using the palace schematics Thea had downloaded, he navigated toward the communications hub. If he could establish direct contact with Earth's fleet, they could coordinate their attack with whatever rebellion was unfolding inside. He rounded a corner and nearly collided with a tall Vaxlith in ornate armor, one of the royal advisors he had seen in the throne room. You, the advisor chittered, reaching for a weapon. Before either could react, a precision energy beam struck the advisor from behind. They collapsed, revealing Dexmora standing in a side passage. The rebellion has begun earlier than planned, the guard explained, stepping over the unconscious advisor. The sovereign's decision to harvest Earth united several factions against her. Come, the communications chamber is this way. As they hurried through the palace, Nikolai witnessed scenes of conflict everywhere, guard fought guard, courtier faced courtier. The rigid hierarchy was fracturing along lines that had apparently been strained for generations. How many support your cause? He asked as they ducked into a service tunnel. Enough, Dexmora replied. The outer colonies have suffered under the sovereign's rule for too long. When news spread that she intended to violate the ancestral covenant against another species, it became the catalyst many needed. The communications hub was surprisingly unguarded. Most security forces had been drawn to the main conflict around the throne room. Nikolai worked quickly, establishing an encrypted channel to Commander Hiroaki while Dex Mora stood watch. Captain Reeves, the commander's face appeared on the screen, relief evident. We were preparing a rescue operation. Negative on rescue, Nikolai replied. The situation has evolved. There's an internal rebellion underway. Did you receive the frequency data? Affirmative. Weapons have been calibrated accordingly. Good. Target the Royal Spire specifically, that's where the harvest drones are being prepared. But be advised, not all Vaxlith are hostile. Request precision strikes only. A commotion outside the door pulled his attention away. Dex Mora was engaged with 2 royal guards, all 4 arms moving in combat patterns too fast for human eyes to track. Coordinates transmitted, Nikolai said quickly. Execute in 30 minutes unless you receive countermand code Alpha 7. The connection cut as a stray energy blast hit the console. Nikolai grabbed a fallen weapon and joined the fight, but there was little he could do against the physically superior Vaxlith warriors. A blow sent him sprawling across the floor, vision blurring. Dex Mora dispatched the guards but sustained injuries. Greenish fluid leaked from gaps in their exoskeleton. We must reach the throne room. The Sovereign will have activated the emergency protocols. What does that mean? Nikolai asked, struggling to his feet. Royal genocide, came the grim reply. If she cannot maintain control, she will release toxins that kill all Vaxlith in the palace except those with her direct genetic signature. They fought their way through the palace, gathering more rebels as they progressed. By the time they reached the throne room antechamber, their group had swelled to dozens, Vaxlith of various castes united against the queen. The throne room doors were sealed, but Dex Mora placed explosive charges at strategic points. Queen Zatara will be protected by her royal guard, the most elite warriors in the empire. And once we're inside? Nikolai asked. We must prevent her from activating the Genesis chamber. That's where the Earth-specific harvest drones are being cultivated. The doors blew inward, and chaos erupted. Royal guards swarmed forward while rebels poured into the chamber. Nikolai stayed close to Dex Mora, providing covering fire while the more physically capable Vaxlith engaged in close combat. Through the melee, he spotted Queen Zatara, not retreating, but advancing toward a crystalline structure in the center of the room. The Genesis chamber. She's going to release the drones manually, he shouted to Dex Mora. They fought toward her, but royal guards formed an impenetrable wall of chitin and weaponry. From his neural implant, Thea alerted him that Earth's fleet had begun their approach, precisely on schedule. The palace would soon be within firing range. In desperation, Nikolai activated the emergency frequency Thea had discovered, the one that had affected the Centauri's first contact. His neural implant amplified it through the palace sound system. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every Vaxlith in the room froze, their nervous systems temporarily disrupted by the specific harmonic. Only Queen Zatara seemed partially immune, though she moved with obvious difficulty. What have you done? She hissed, mandibles clicking frantically as she clawed her way toward the Genesis chamber. Nikolai approached her, weapon raised. Stopped a war before it could begin. You understand nothing, she gurgled, her translator struggling as her biology fought the disruptive frequency. The Empire requires new genetic material. We are dying, each generation weaker than the last. Then negotiate, Nikolai replied. The way the Centauri did. Earth would have helped willingly if you had asked instead of demanded. Weakness, she spat. To ask is to admit inferiority. To cooperate is to ensure survival, Dex Mora countered, joining them despite obvious pain from the frequency. The old ways taught partnership, not domination. The Queen's many eyes focused on her rebellious subject. Traitor. Reformer, Dexmora corrected. The council has been convened. Your reign ends today, sovereign. As if on cue, the ceiling retracted, revealing Earth's fleet in battle formation directly above the palace. Precision targeting systems locked onto the royal spire, ready to destroy the harvest drones but nothing more. Queen Zatara looked from the ships above to the rebels surrounding her, then to the human who had catalyzed it all by refusing to kneel. Something shifted in her posture, not surrender, but perhaps recognition. The Vaxlith Empire has stood for 10,000 years, she said finally. And it can stand for 10,000 more, Nikolai replied. But not through conquest. Earth offers alliance, not subjugation. Genetic research, not harvest. Partnership, not surrender. 3 days later, Captain Nikolai Reeve stood on the observation deck of Earth's flagship, watching as the treaty was formalized. Beside him, Dexmora, now appointed as interim representative of the reformed Vaxlith Council, observed the proceedings. Your species is remarkably adaptable, the Vaxlith noted. Most would have responded with overwhelming force when threatened. Sometimes strength lies in refusing to fight on your enemy's terms, Nikolai replied. Though I didn't expect a civil war to be the outcome. It was inevitable, Dexmora's mandibles clicked softly. Your defiance merely provided the catalyst many needed to act on their convictions. Below them, Queen Zatara, now simply Sovereign Emeritus, formally ceded power to the Reformed Council. The Harvest program was dismantled, replaced by a joint research initiative between human and Vaxlith scientists to address the genetic degradation through ethical means. When you refused to kneel, Dexmora said thoughtfully, you taught us something our species had forgotten. What's that? That true strength doesn't require others to bow. It lifts them up instead. As Earth's representatives and Vaxlith counselors signed the historic accord, Nikolai reflected on how close they had come to devastating war. One gesture of defiance, the choice to stand when ordered to kneel, had changed the course of 2 civilizations. To new beginnings, he said, offering his hand in a human gesture of partnership. Dexmora extended an upper limb, carefully grasping Nikolai's hand. To standing together. Beyond the windows of the observation deck, the stars continued their eternal vigil, indifferent to the small creatures who had just chosen cooperation over conquest, proving once again that sometimes the greatest revolutions begin not with a bow, but with the courage to stand tall.